Again, please. So please welcome to the stage our amazing panelist, Bruce Pond, founder of the Ocean Protocol. You can start uploading already. Leo Kielce, founder of Style Protocol. Yep. And Zoe Mekbach, who's a member of Fala Network and global ambassador for the Polkadot events. We'll take a seat here, and in accordance to our tradition now at this event, I would ask you please to introduce yourself, talk briefly about your project. Please, Leo.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you so much for having me. Leo, my name, based here in Berlin. We're working on Style Protocol. It's an NFT and 3D asset interoperability protocol connecting multiple virtual worlds and metaverses to allow you to basically take assets from A to B freely around the multiverse. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Zoe, my name. And thank you for still being with us. I know it was a long day, I think, and we are still here. I'm Vice President of Growth and Business Development for Fala Network. Fala Network is a decentralized computation cloud as a parachain in the Polkadot ecosystem. And in addition to my work at Fala Network, I'm also the global head ambassador for Polkadot. So anything about Polkadot, I'm happy to answer if I can. Thanks for having us, me and us.
Bruce Pond, been in blockchain since 2013, leading Ocean Protocol.
Very well. So, you're all part of different projects that take the interoperability problem from a different angle. So I would like to start with a question a la JFK, if I may. So what can you do for interoperability, and what can interoperability do for you? Zoe, maybe.
Yeah, so interoperability, is, I think, something that we all want to push more in the blockchain space, right? Is the goal of a multi-chain or cross-chain future, however you want to put it. The fact that Fala is a parachain on Polkadot, we actually leverage interoperability based on XCM, cross-consensus messaging format. We just heard about IBC, right? IBC is similar to XCM, not exactly the same. You can actually combine these technologies, but it's our cross-consensus messaging format that we use in the Polkadot ecosystem as of now, with, of course, the purpose of, or the goal to also push it outside the Polkadot ecosystem and have cross-chain assets transferred, and more than assets actually in the end. So interoperability in the Polkadot ecosystem, again, means like leveraging XCM mainly, and this is what interoperability can do for us at the moment. From the other perspective at Fala Network, our decentralized cloud is not an interoperable cloud, but of course it can be used in any ecosystem. But we are currently building also a product on our cloud itself called Subbridge. And what we do there is actually we create an asset transfer, and it's not just a normal transfer, it's actually like a routing mechanism where we combine actually XCM with existing bridging such as OneBridge or ChainBridge. And this, first of all, increases the security of like cross-chain and outside ecosystem transactions. But we are very active at the moment to use XCM and open up or communicate with the existing parachains that are in the ecosystem on Polkadot or Kusama already. And the cool thing is about leveraging XCM, actually it's a natively built-in protocol format. Sorry, it's not a protocol, it's a format. So you have a language that transfers these assets that every parachain has it natively built in, right? So you easily or very simply open up an HRMP channel to another chain, and then you actually can leverage XCM. And this is what we are working on right now to use interoperability that Polkadot gives us natively built in, that based on us being a parachain in this ecosystem.
Thanks. Very interesting. And maybe Bruce, you can go next.
I mean, for Ocean, well, actually, let me just take a step back. So in general, what I've seen as blockchain has developed is different questions that occupy the entire space. So it was scaling, and we saw that with L2s. Now we're in a phase where we have a lot of applications, lots of projects, and we have a lot of change. And so with all these chains, with all these applications, you have the choice to stay on that chain or to go cross-chain depending on where the users are going. And so for me, that is one of the challenges that we face as Ocean Protocol, is to say, how do we architect our protocol so that it can work on whichever chain is needing kind of the capability of Ocean Protocol to help kickstart the data economy. So that's just in general the key challenge is number one, you don't necessarily need interoperability unless you have kind of product market fit. And then when you do have product market fit in terms of kind of the application, then it's useful if you have that the ability to then propagate that across other chains, if that makes sense.
So when you say that you want to, develop your protocol on a cross-chain level, you mean like implementing the Ocean protocol on a different layer one, or you mean just make it possible that from other layers one to directly access the Ocean protocol?
All of it. So one of the challenges that people have is just to conceptually be able to onboard into the protocol wherever they're the most comfortable. And typically that's been Ethereum, but with the rise of L2s and such like that, then you have the L2s being able to attract new users. And if that is the interaction point that they come in, whether it's like gaming or identity or health or what have you, that is where they go in. And then from there, they get to discover other stuff. And then the challenge for any project is to be where the energy shows up with your capability, and that forces you in some ways to be, I guess, interoperable or have an architecture that's flexible enough so you can kind of be active on the chain where the action is.
Thanks. And Del?
I mean, I don't really have anything super relevant to add, so I guess we can keep the conversation going.
Sure. Let's move on then.
I would just like to ask a question to you, because you made a statement saying you don't need interoperability when you have market fit.
When you don't have it.
Or when you don't have it.
So, well, I would still stick with you, Leo, if you don't mind. Then, my question would be for you, what is the future in regards to interoperability for the end user, right? So, from the user point of view, it could be that the layer one chain is not important at all. It could be that it's still very important. It could be that it's like, Linux, if I can use this metaphor, that everybody uses it, right? But nobody really knows.
I think you're asking like how interoperability will be for the end user? Or?
For the end user, like imagine, right now, of course, the end user still has to know a lot about interoperability to pick the right solution. What do you think, how do you wish the future to be in that sense?
I mean, right now, I think we're all aware of us generally having an onboarding problem in the blockchain space, because for the end user, oftentimes applications are still very complicated. And long term, I think most likely these solutions need to be built in a way that allows people to basically get started without any blockchain or tech infrastructure knowledge whatsoever. So also with regards to interoperability, what we discussed beforehand, I think the discussion really needs to be for developers and for people building in the space on how to make things happen and how to build stuff in a scalable and interoperable manner. But for the end user, at the end of the day, it just needs to be simple and it needs to work, because they don't really care whether it's on Solana or Cardano or on Ethereum. If they want to use a certain software, they just want to use it.
Yeah, I would just add to this saying that they maybe don't, I mean, they don't need to understand it, but they definitely care about it, right? Especially like DeFi regions, they really care about interoperability in the DeFi space because we are not there yet. And it's such a effort, I would say, to transfer assets between chains at the moment, like transferring between wallets and so on. So there, for the end user, of course, interoperability is very important, but of course, then your user experience is something that we need to work on to make it very smooth and like seamless for the end user, that they don't even see what's based on the technology, right? But I would say that even the end user, like not the developer, but like the non-developer end user, really needs this. And I'm using here an example from a friend. Actually, he used at another panel this week, talking about like when we use our phone, right, and going to the States or like even in a different country in Europe. We don't care which protocol or like internet like we are using there, but we really care that we have it, right? And we are not there yet that we can offer a user, an end user in, for example, DeFi space, this kind of, we just cannot offer this service right now. But I wouldn't say that the end user doesn't care about it. So it's very important that we are actually focusing on this.
Right, and still, even if you abstract away everything from the user perspective, you could solve this problem in several ways. You could solve it on a, let's say, backend on-chain level. You could solve it, but just by having a cool app that doesn't let you know which interoperability solution, which bridge you're using. But of course, all these bridges, they have an underlying technology which is actually different, right? And we've seen that the field is pretty scattered, and even the underlying security assumptions are quite different. We've seen several hacks for centralized bridges being mentioned, and in this sense, it is very difficult for the user to judge the solution, and this is maybe also a hindrance for.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult right now because we are still working on the infrastructure itself, right? If you haven't figured out the technology or how we actually do interoperability between ecosystem, between chains in the same ecosystem whatsoever, then you cannot offer a smooth user experience for the end user, right? So we are still there to actually work on interoperability between chains, between ecosystems. And once we have like set this in stone, or like at least it's like usable, then we can improve the user experience. That's my point of view.
And then maybe a provocation. So today was, of course, the day of the merge. And we've seen a successful merge, sharding coming on, big improvements for layer 2 solutions. So the question is, could it be that Ethereum 2 is just scalable enough to cover most blockchain use cases? And in that sense, will there still be a need for other solutions at all? Whoever wants to.
Yes, there will be a need for other solutions. I mean, there are other solutions out there. Again, Polkadot as the layer 0, the meta protocol, right, is definitely. I think if you want to go into this direction, will people now use Ethereum 2.0 over Polkadot, for example? I would strongly disagree with this because we see in the Polkadot ecosystem even parachains like Centrifuge or others that came from the Ethereum ecosystem to ours to actually, because they understood the value and the advantages that we bring. So sharding and so on, of course, will improve the scalability. We have our parachains with whom we can actually scale our ecosystem. However, Polkadot was set up from a completely different approach, right? Gav left Ethereum to actually build a blockchain on a green field. And the two important things about Polkadot are actually the security, the shared security that the Meta protocol provides. So we have a set of validators that are out there that parachains can take advantage of, and the interoperability based on XCM that I just explained. So this is something that Ethereum doesn't offer. And in addition to this, we also have like a blockchain framework called Substrate, which actually makes it happen to upgrade your blockchain, right? So if you would be in this scenario where we have this kind of merge or like a fork even, we have like, it's not possible on Polkadot. So you actually simply upgrade your chain, and we have like over 600 upgrades already over the last year since Polkadot is launched. So there are a lot of advantages that, in my opinion, are very important to not switch over or like to stick in different ecosystems. Cosmos has their own advantages and so on. So
I also think it's probably very desirable to have a lot of different networks because different blockchains are built for different use cases, and yes, they develop, but they all develop in different directions. And I also think if you look at an industry or a space as an entirety, you don't really want everything built on one infrastructure only, because if something happens or something fails, there could be gigantic issues for everyone involved. Plus, the whole development of the space will be slower because you're all reliant on like one singular blockchain. Whereas if you have multiple layer 0, multiple layer 1, people can build based on the blockchain that they find most attractive for their use case.
in addition to this, actually, it's very exciting to see Ethereum 2.0, even like for the Polkadot ecosystem, if I would say so, because it creates more opportunities, right? We even have like a bridge to Ethereum and so on, and it creates more opportunities to combine, as Leo just said, the different ecosystems. Yeah.
So as a, let's say an application or protocol that sits on top of various L2s and L1s, I think that interoperability is not an issue right now. I think that the people who are working on this type of stuff are looking forward and making it so that when applications come, that's going to be ready. But it seems to me that it's very clear that you want single chains that develop a complete stack of tools for developers, for users, etc., middleware, and the best one's going to win for a certain use case. And that's where we're at right now, where you're trying to build up each individual silo and then try to get the most attention, the most users, the most developers onto it so that it can mature faster and so that your chain can be one of the biggest winners. And only once we have some sort of big trigger point where there's big usage coming on, or where it's kind of like a duality of 2 chains or 3 chains or something like that need somehow to work together in the future, will interoperability really be an issue? So I actually don't see interoperability being a problem for the next 5 to 10 years.
Very interesting, I guess. It's also controversial, maybe, but an interesting take, nevertheless. You were shaking your head.
I mean, it depends on like you have to define interoperability. I guess on a blockchain like ground layer perspective, he might be right. But if you look at other use cases, then I do think it's relatively important for people to kind of like be able to transfer assets or values across different chains. Probably before 5 to 10 years from now on. Again, it depends on which area of interoperability you're looking at.
Right. So, for instance, we've seen the example of gaming before, or in general.
Gaming or virtual identity are one of the use cases where I think people will most likely sooner than 5 years want to be able to transfer their identity or their assets, whether it's pets or whatever, across different chains.
NFTs, I mean, what you guys are building, right? NFTs in Metaverse, I think this is the biggest use case as well.
But interoperability actually goes against the interests of each L2 or L1, right? Like every single L1 wants to monopolize usage on their chain, so it's actually not in their interest for interoperability, is it?
Does it though? What if they can monetize assets that are brought onto their chains and transfer value of them? I do think it could be in their interest.
Could be. It's an interesting game theoretical model, right? Because some chains might want to say like, let's focus on apps and let's make it the healthiest system that we can have for gaming apps. And then once they have that, their goal is, of course, to run faster than the other chains. And then maybe, of course, the other chains want to get a piece of this, and then they try to build bridges in and stuff like that. So I do definitely agree that having more chains is good for competition because we need that right now. We're kind of in that Cambrian explosion phase of L2s and L1s. But as applications specifically, that was the context that I was talking about interoperability. For an application, we don't need it really. Of course, token transfers and stuff like that, those are all more infrastructure stuff, but actually applications being interoperable, we don't need that right now.
Yeah, it depends a bit also on your specific case, right? I can imagine that the smaller fish in the sea, they want to have a piece of the bigger fishes, like using interoperability. But as Bruce mentioned, like if you're already really focused on apps, maybe you don't need them to care about the rest of the sea. So it's 2030, and or it's 2022 and you have a crystal ball, one of the two you can pick. Which new business cases have been built that really, using interoperability have been the killer apps for interoperability? I'm gonna steal your idea then.
Just what I said before, probably the identity and being able to move verification, whether it's personal verification or in-game assets across chains and across worlds, is what I think will be very relevant. Besides of what we're building with gaming and 3D assets and I don't know, funny outfits and pets. Also, if you have like verification chains and like the more conservative industries start adapting blockchain for KYC processes and data storage, etc. I think people will want to be able to move what they have verified on one chain or with one service somewhere else as well without having to go through an entire process once more.
Right, so the idea is that we would have a very specialized chain that does nail the KYC very well, and then every other chain can just use data from this chain to get the service.
I don't know, dude, maybe, or we have a service that really securely transfers this data across the different chains where it can be used.
Yeah, I would maybe not pinpoint on a specific use case, but would say like how an interoperable future looks like, right? And I'm getting really excited to see the connection between ecosystems, right? Between layer zeros or like layer ones. Exactly what we are doing or want to do in the future also with XCM. We have projects actually combining XCM with IBC so we can, instead of using bridges, using formats and languages to actually send assets and transfer between ecosystems and layer 0, layer 1 protocols. So this is something that I'm much more excited about to see how the infrastructure actually gets us there to then build this type of use cases. It's 2022 now, so this will definitely happen before 2030. And then, yeah, I think in the crypto space, it's so difficult to look into the future, right? So maybe there are even use cases that we don't even know about yet. We have some, specifically in metaverse. I think it's very exciting to build like interoperable or metaverse infrastructure as well. And this is something that can come pretty soon. I'm just excited what will be done or being developed then in future.
I'm not sure I have anything to add to that.
Sounds good. How are we doing with time? I think we have questions. We have one okay and 2 questions. I'll get the 2 questions. Please.
Yeah, question. The biggest question I have with interoperability is liquidity. Wait a second. The biggest question I have is really based upon liquidity, and we see this with general network effects. You can go back to all the typical network effect stuff with beta, CAM, and VHS and stuff, and wherever the liquidity is, no matter if the technology is even worse, people will go to. We see that with NFTs right now. It's way more expensive with Ethereum, yet where are all the NFTs being traded on Ethereum? Because the liquidity is there, and if we have too much cross-chain stuff, then the liquidity gets spread out, so people might just tend to just go where the liquidity is rather than wanting to be cross-chain.
Yeah, I think that was another way of what I was trying to say. Yeah, like there are network effects even in Web3, and I was trying to think as I was sitting up here, what causes or it's like the expansion of the universe. What brings stuff together if the universe is tending to expand? And it's the same thing with network effects. The network effects of a system are against interoperability because what you want to do is you want to concentrate that liquidity, that value, the capability and everything like that. And so that's one of the challenges of any network, is to get that. And Web3 has this kind of idealistic view, which I support, that it's democratized and everybody can have access to it, and then we have this kind of free flow of technology back and forth. But it doesn't mean that you have local maximums and local minimums, and those local maximums is where you're going to get the maximum value. Doesn't mean that you won't have interoperability or some sort of communication between these various things, but you're going to really want to concentrate value in one chain for one use case where all the liquidity and all the value can be stored. Then there's almost no need to move that to something else.
I would slightly disagree with this, because it seems like this is very seen from the network's perspective. And we are building technology for the user, right? For someone using our protocol. And if the user doesn't want to have it on one specific network or chain and wants to transfer their liquidity and wants to transfer their assets, we should be able to accommodate this, right? So I think we should think more about like the end user's needs and actually accommodate this in or reflect this in our technology, and through this also being able to communicate with other chains and actually provide interoperability.
Thank you. And with this, I would conclude the panel and thank again my panelists with our applause. I leave the stage back to Santiago and Jakob.
So thank you very much, everyone, for arriving to this point. Lots of people still at the end of the event. So yeah, we are very happy of what has happened. A lot of food for thought. I think that we are gonna, there are a lot of takeaways from the event. And I don't know, Jakob, if you want to say some other words, just thank you from Virgin side. Thank you to everyone. We are here to connect. This is just one, another point in our conversation and in building this community, and we really look forward to continue these conversations and also to meet each other at different events. And also, if you want to reach to Berchain, you already know how. And yeah.
Thanks a lot, Santiago. Maybe last words from my side. One, a reminder that please reach out to me if you have any interest in Berlin Partner and the services we do. We can support you in your driving your business in Berlin. So I will be here until 8, some sort of in the backyard, so we can have a talk about what Berlin Partner can do for you in your company. And also, I would also like to thank you a lot. It was a really nice day for me. We had a lot of interesting people here, interesting talks, a lot of findings I've taken home, I guess. And maybe, last one would be, feel free to, feel invited to share aperitivo after this, and we are still here, join with us some beer and have a nice and smooth chat.
Yes, and also for those that have been a recurring guest at our event, we also have created this time a POAP, so you can just have it and put it in your wallet, and like year after year, we plan to be here, so you can just show that you are a part of the community and the blockchain in use attendees community. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. And as Jakob said, feel free to get a beer, an aperitif, and mingle a little bit outside.
One thing maybe, if you want to know what we do in the future, also you can also reach out to me. I can put you on our newsletter because we have a couple of more things which we plan together this year and even next year. So also reach out for that. But now, thanks a lot and have a great evening.